Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe Resinello, there's a lot going on, Joe. And I mean, nowadays there's always a lot going on, but this Twitter drama. You want to call it drama, Joe? I guess Elon Musk is like the big bad dude. All right, in this surreal drama, all because he's buying a platform and he wants people to be able to speak freely. Again, some people have even on the right have a beef with what I just said, but let's leave it at that for the moment. That he wants to have a free speech platform. They're all going ballistic from the time he said he was going to buy Twitter, right? You could see their brains exploding on the left. Lord, he's gonna, it's fascism because this guy wants to have a free speech platform. So what happened recently, and for all of our audience members out there probably know, but Joe and I want to throw our 2 cents in. He's releasing documents in waves, basically exposing Twitter for their suppression of free speech, not the least, which is the example of which is during the 2020 election and the suppression of the Hunter Biden story that was put out by the New York Post. And it's blatant. Joe, I'm going to hand it over to you. I mean, I think this is if this is not the main reason why they really wanted to not have him not take over Twitter, well, they failed miserably because he's putting it out there into the public. And the public is looking at it saying, well, they say, show us the receipts, show us the receipts, show us the receipts. He's showing the receipts. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, clearly Twitter, it's a public company. They have a right to put on what they want and what they don't want. My beef is that the government colluded with Twitter. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask me, that is the biggest scandal. I'm not a historian that I could recall in the history of America. The government colluded with a public media outlet to influence an election. No one cares. When I say no one cares, still tens of millions of people will vote for Joe Biden. The Department of Justice will absolutely not investigate it. And the Republican House will absolutely do nothing.
Nothing.
Why? Because it's Donald Trump. Let's break down the reason why they're doing this to Donald Trump. Because he's attacking the establishment. And in doing so, he takes away their power and he gives it to people. That is why they hate Donald Trump. Too many, there's too many people who are sane. I'll call them sane Democrats. What I mean by that is they're just working people. They're not involved in the news cycle. They don't pay attention to the woke stuff. They just go about their business. They're Democrats. They don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one in the middle class, in the working class, and in the working poor who should vote for this party because they are not for you. Donald Trump is attacking the establishment, and that is why the GOP hate him too.
Joe, I do want to mention one thing to you, though, at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel. If you're just joining us, remember the chat room's always open at crusadechannel.com/chat. I do want to mention one thing, Joe. I agree with you. I think Donald Trump was right that if he shot somebody in the middle of the street, there's many people that would still vote for him. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not, okay? But I think you're right, and that the vast majority of Democrat voters would vote for Joe Biden, regardless of what was exposed in the Hunter Biden fiasco, okay? And that drama that played out with the New York Post posting that on Twitter. Again, we're talking here about Twitter. But Joe, remember something. Remember something, okay? 17% of people that were polled who voted for Joe Biden said they would not have voted for him had they known about the Hunter Biden story. That, I think, is not something we should overlook. That is a very, very large piece of Democrat voters who said, I wouldn't have voted for him, or I would have been less likely to vote for him had I known about the Hunter Biden story. My point to you is this. The suppression of the story by Twitter had the desired effect. Regardless of what you think of the 2020 election, if 17% of those people don't show up to vote for Joe Biden, regardless of anything else you want to throw at that election, Donald Trump's still president. Donald Trump's still president. They were effective in their collusion. And you're right, Joe. Can you think of a time? All the things we were taught in our lives. Oh, Watergate's the worst thing that. Iran-Contra's the worst thing that. No. Let's say, for argument's sake, if you were talking about ex-CIA operatives, intelligence operatives helping Richard Nixon debug the Democratic National Committee, Watergate and all that. If you talk about Iran-Contra, this is the government colluding with a big tech media company, also using and employing the CIA and the intelligence apparatus of the United States government. If that's not the biggest scandal in American history, I'm with you. I don't know what is.
And we were talking about this earlier. Didn't you say it was like 7 seconds, Joe? All the media outlets gave the story.
What I saw was that, yes, that Joe Concha was on Fox News. Okay. In fact, I think Joe Resinello, I think we have a clip of it. Let me see. Yeah, let's show a clip. All right. And this is Joe Concha talking about it. This is the disgrazia. Joe, I haven't used that word in a while.
Love it.
I want to be clear. I haven't used that word in a while. Okay. This is the disgrazia news media who constantly says Don Lemon was on with Colbert the other day. And one of the most cringeworthy clips I ever saw, he says CNN is neutral. Now, either Don Lemon is a lunatic or he's smoking some serious drugs. Okay. Because he made that statement. He had the chutzpah, as they to say, and he made that statement that he thought CNN was neutral. He's out of his mind. Here's a quick clip about the disgraziad, let's say, mainstream news media. This is Joe Concha on Fox News. Let's take a listen.
Bring in GOP Senator John Kennedy. He joins us now.
Actually, Joe, I apologize. I apologize for that. Different segment. But let's just real quick. That's where it was reported. They spent 7 seconds on this story. 7 seconds on the whole Twitter.
It doesn't shock me.
And that's disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. No one cares. And that's more disgraceful. It just shows you how dysfunctional our country is. Again, we were talking about this earlier today. The Donald Trump experiment is like a snapshot at the corruption of the United States of America. It's disturbing. It really is disturbing. It shows how little power people have. We have none. Zero. And I got news for you. There's the vast majority of the GOP, they're not for us either. It is sad. Michael Moore said it.
Go ahead.
Michael Moore said when Donald Trump was elected, this is the closest thing that the average man can do to throw a grenade into the White House. And he's right.
Well, why not? Let me ask you this, Joe. In other words, now we're pro-life Catholics, okay? And there's a lot of things we disagree with about Trump, his position on, let's say, homosexuality. He's got a very laissez-faire attitude towards that. He had Rick Grinnell, who was also a homosexual. He went overseas and tried to tie foreign aid, or he tried to impress upon foreign governments to liberalize their sodomy laws or do away with them completely. There's a lot about Donald Trump that I'd say straight up I don't agree with, okay? And that make me hold my nose when I go and vote for him again. if he gets the nomination. I don't deny that, okay? But I think you said it just right. Doesn't the establishment deserve? See, we can't use words like you just used because then the little dweeb at YouTube who's actually watching this and monitoring what we're saying. So let's just say, how about throw a wrench into the establishment's plans, okay? Rather than drop bombs or grenades, throw a wrench into the
Well,
establishment's
wasn't
plan.
a
Throw a wrench into the motor of the engine of the deep state. And that's precisely what Donald Trump did, and they can't have that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a literal grenade. What Moore was basically saying is he wants to basically tear down the establishment. So do I.
Right, so do
Actually.
we.
I mean, and that is what, and that's where I plead with Democrats, working Democrats. They don't represent you. They're using you. You get nothing from them except inflation, high grocery bills, high gas prices.
High
They're
taxes.
destroying you, yet
Right.
you vote for them. And this is the saddest thing I've ever seen. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Rich people, we can agree to disagree. We'll agree to disagree because you're not affected by Joe Biden's inflation. If you are in the middle class and you're voting for these people, they're using you.
Well,
They simply are. And I'm all for the establishment being torn down. I want the DLJ to be torn apart. I want the FBI to be torn apart. I want the Department of Education to be torn apart. Torn
That's right.
apart. That's
Right.
just three things.
Joe, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. I think I could speak for you. I think I can. Okay. Let's say there was a viable, not realistic third-party candidate, a third-party candidate that could get that actually probably wouldn't get elected, but could really make a lot of waves. And I had the choice between voting for that third-party candidate. Let's just give that not so fictional candidate a name, even though it's from the past. Pat Buchanan. Okay. Pat Buchanan's worldview is in sync with our worldview. His worldview is actually in sync for the most part, not completely, with the Donald Trump, his America First movement, obviously called MAGA, Make America Great Again. Okay. But Pat Buchanan is decidedly Catholic, pro-life, pro-states' rights, all of it. Okay. And here's the difference in why I'm bringing it up. Because I am a loyal Republican to a degree, like a loyal Democrat. Here's the thing, though. Even if Pat Buchanan, as a third-party candidate, I know would lose, but can make enough waves and make people think, okay? But if I vote for the Republican could probably win and beat the Democrat. I think in my conscience, Joe, I'm going to vote for Pat Buchanan. And I think I would do it. And that's the difference between us and a lot of blind Democrats and a lot of blind Republicans who know that Pat Buchanan, in my little scenario here, would be the better choice for people who are religious, for people who are logocentric, even though they might not necessarily be Catholic, but people who believe in limited government, but also limiting our own individual behaviors, people who are against Hollywood and the filth that they produce. Okay. I, in my conscience, knowing that my candidate's probably going to lose, I'm going to vote for that third-party candidate. Call him a Pat Buchanan. What do you think about that?
Well, that actually could happen. Trump potentially could, if he doesn't get the nomination, run as a third party. There's a lot of conversation going on about that actually could happen. Establishment Republicans don't represent me. They simply don't.
They don't.
I use the example of DeSantis in Florida regarding what's it called? Teaching of homosexuality and transgenderism in grammar schools. He only said it should not go on to the age of 9.
Right.
See, that says everything to me. It shouldn't.
Wrong answer.
No. So it's okay for an 11-year-old to talk about transgenderism in the 5th grade, in the 6th grade? No, it's not okay.
But Joe, let me ask you this, Joe. I'm really interested in this. Doesn't that mean that we have to stop settling for what we could get? What I mean by that, and I'm going to kick it right back to you. Use DeSantis, because I'm not going to be deceived. I think DeSantis is a good guy. Don't get me wrong.
So do I.
I think he's a savvier politician, though.
I'm not interested in the politician.
No. That's where I'm going. If you say to me and many, many, many other people, if DeSantis says what you just said, well, we're not going to allow that up till 9 years old. most people like us, and there's a lot of us in this country, say, so what? What does that mean? That makes you a hero. Same with abortion. Well, we have a 15-week abortion ban. So what? You're a pro-choice state. You're a pro-abortion state then. Don't show me or try to show me your pro-life bona fides, because I'm not buying it, because you don't have them. You're at 15 weeks. How about conception? That would be, how about a ban on it? But now again, I say he's politically savvy. That doesn't mean that guys like us and many, many, many other people, Joe, are going to look to that. And that's one of the problems, is he's being a shrewd politician when stop settling for liberal light and start standing up for conservatism. And those two examples I would give. What say you?
Well, conservatism won't win, Joe. I hate to say it. We're a minority. I would almost go so far as to say our opinions, our views, particularly from a Catholic lens, they don't have to worry about us. There's not enough of us. And that's sad, but it's true. It's sad. Like America, these men are about power. They want to win.
Right.
And abortion at 15 weeks is a winner. And that's what it's about. They have to deal with that when they stand before God. Listen, that's your business. You know, I'll tell you what I did when I voted, because as a Catholic, it's a moral obligation to vote. I had to vote for the school board. Now, I don't know people in my town. My kids don't go to the public school. There were 5 people. I had to vote for 3. So I asked a local guy here who I know. He's like, I think he's like 2nd or 3rd generation in the town. He knows a lot of people. He went to the high school. He's my neighbor. I was asking him, like, what do you know about it? He's like, I don't know too much about it. So you know what I did? I wrote people in. I wrote in Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
I love it.
That's what I did. I voted for Jesus, Mary, and Joseph in the write-in. And that's what I'll do for the president. I will not vote.
Joe, Joe, I'm sorry. I was going to save this for later. I'm playing it right now because you just reminded me. You just reminded me of Joseph Mazzulla, the interim coach of the Boston Celtics. I'm going to play this for our audience at the front line with Joe and Joe, because
that's a true story, dude.
No, Joe. Listen, I don't. I'll tell you very quickly, and then I'm going to play the clip. No, I'm going to play the clip, and then we'll come back.
Chance to meet with the royal family, and if not, how was it like having them there in the building?
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph?
The Prince and Princess of Wales.
Oh, no, I did not. I'm only familiar with one royal family. I don't know too much about that one. Thank you. But I'm glad hopefully they're Celtic fans. Yeah, thank you.
Now, here's why I played that. It reminded me, okay, what you just said, okay? Now, some people say, well, he was being a little cheeky when he did that. No, that's who I'm going to write in. Joseph Mazzulla, okay, reminded me. Now, again, Joe, sometimes we have to unfortunately play the game, but many out there know that my wife and I, we're fostering a child. We hope to adopt him soon. But when we got to Arizona, we applied to be foster parents here because we want to do the same thing and get another child, okay, and adopt that child. And the reason why I bring it up is the woman from the state, and you'll love this, Joe. You'll love this, right? So, and hopefully our audience out there at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, I think you'll know where I'm going. I'm on the phone. I'm getting really tired of getting beat up as a Roman Catholic man in America. When my wife and I dealt with the state of New Jersey, we dealt with blatant anti-Catholic bigotry, okay? But we wanted our kid, and by the grace of God, we got our kid. So we kept our mouth shut. I had this woman on the phone, and she said, outside of your family, who do you lean on when, maybe you come upon some hard times and things like that? And I went, Jesus. And there was like this pregnant pause for about 10 seconds. And all of a sudden she says, well, that's just great. The conversation went on from there. But you want to know what? It's the truth. And what you just said is the truth. You fill it in on the school board. And Coach Joseph Mazzulla, God bless him. Royal family, I'll tell you who the royal family is. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. My point in bringing it up is we need to start asserting ourselves in that way. Stop worrying. You know what, Joe? We got to stop worrying in our minds and in our hearts. Well, people are offended when you mention Jesus. As my 83-year-old Italian mother says, hey, it's a too bad. All right. We need to start bearing that kind of witness, even if it's in a small way. But you know what? I'm getting tired of them beating the crap out of us. And you know what? We need to start asserting our Catholic identity in America. And if that means losing elections, I don't give a crap. If that
Well,
means
dude,
Joseph
like I
Missoula
said,
loses his
they're not
job, I
doing
don't
anything
care.
for us anyway, Joe.
What's
I mean,
that?
ultimately, they, Joe, I'll be truthful with you. Outside of a miracle, America is finished. Outside of a miracle, because these are people that represent the views of the citizenry. We're finished. Like it is sad. It is so sad. I'll be honest with you. People, when it's gone, they're gonna miss it because this was a unique place. Why do I say it was a unique place? It's the only place in the world that a regular person, through hard work, can achieve almost anything. That does not take place in other parts of the world, not even in Europe.
Yeah.
That is disappearing right before our eyes. It is disappearing, and that is sad.
It's
And
sad.
I'm going to be honest with you, we are voting for it.
Well, think about it this way, Joe. Um, with the Supreme Court, we said this before, this is not a shock, but here's the thing about, let's just use abortion as an example. When the Supreme Court imposed that on the country, then you kind of maybe have a reason to say, well, I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't vote for it or against it because the Supreme Court said that I didn't have the power to within my individual state or as an American citizen, as an individual American. I had no say in it at the voting booth. Now we do. And Joe, you brought it up last week. Montana basically has no restrictions on abortion whatsoever. Am I right about that?
Now,
Deep red.
they voted on their ballot that you could terminate the life of a child that survives an abortion. Montana.
Okay, Montana. So now, as you mentioned earlier at the front line with Joe and Joe Rasinello, now standing in front of God, now you have no excuse. 9 justices in black robes did not take away your right to vote on this issue. You voted for the people that voted for that, and guess what? That's going on in Kansas. They're rejecting Kentucky, deep red states. Guess what? They're all pro-abortion. And we spoke about it earlier. For those out there, you know that we record our show for Veritas Catholic Radio Network that we do a couple times during the week. That broadcast there, we had on Father Robert McTague earlier today, and we talked about this very thing. In other words, because we're in a post Christian society, post Christian society. We are, Joe, you said it before, we're barreling down the hill because now we voted for abortion. And guess what? Transgenderism, transhumanism, gay marriage. If gay marriage got overturned by Obergefell, there'll be gay marriage in all 50 states. Every single state will have gay marriage.
There's no doubt about that. Joe, what people don't like, and this is again, Joe and I were talking about this earlier. I actually think that what we're experiencing under the Biden regime is a chastisement.
Or the beginnings. I would say the beginnings.
I think, to be honest with you, I think God is going to chastise this country. I think it was like you talk about the appetizer, that was COVID. 1 million people dead, 2 years. That's the beginning.
Lockdowns, all of it.
That's the beginning just here. Now he's basically unleashing the dogs. And it's the Biden regime, it's the beginning. What we're seeing with suppression of news, manipulation of Twitter to suppress a story. This is not fiction. This just got released, and more of it's going to be released. To be honest with you, that's what banana republics and totalitarian states do.
I said to a guy I work with, I said, pretty soon, you absolutely could get canceled and lose your job for exercising your right to free speech. And this is a guy who votes Republican, but nominally so. He's pro-abortion or pro-choice anyway, or all that. He says, well, if you go to why don't you go to Iran and see how they really treat people when it comes to suppressing free speech and and this and that and the other thing. And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Are you really trying to stand there?" I didn't say it in this tone, but I said, "Are you saying that you think America is exempt from that very thing?" I said, "Steve Bannon is under indictment. Okay, people that are sitting in jail for showing up for a speech last January in Washington, they're still sitting in jail. Their constitutional rights have been stripped away on specious. You can't even call it specious evidence. You don't think that people will get thrown in jail for saying marriage is between one man and one woman? What makes America, Joe Sos? What made America? How about I posit this to you, Joe, and ask you for your comments? What made America special was our Constitution. And the left in particular, and the ACLU and the rest of them set out probably a little bit over 100 years ago to wreck the Constitution through various means, and they've been wildly successful. That's what made America special, was the Constitution, not the different people that make up the America, because there's good and bad in every group, okay? That's not what made us special. We didn't find strength in our diversity. That stupid line that I've been hearing now my entire life. That's not what made us strong or special. The Constitution made us special. That's why the Constitution was under constant attack from 50 years before you and I were even on this earth, Joe Resinello. Okay? That's what made us special. Our Constitution doesn't exist anymore. It does not exist. Maybe de facto it does. Okay? Maybe you have a Supreme Court right now that would do something to restore our constitutional rights, but I'm not holding out hope for that. Our Constitution made us special. It's no longer really our Constitution the way it was designed. Therefore, Joe Resinello, we are not special as a nation. That means you or I at some point could be thrown into jail for saying a man cannot be a woman and a woman cannot be a man. That's the bottom line. I'd love your thoughts on that.
We're heading towards that. We're at the beginning stages of it. I mean, as Father Robert said when we interviewed him today, I mean, he said even lukewarm Catholicism is going to be something that you could get into serious trouble with. And I agree with him. I think it's going to carry a stigma in polite circles just to say, like, oh, I'm going to a baptism this weekend. You're going to a baptism. That's a hate group. Catholics are hate group. It's a hate
Right.
group. That's a direction we're going. We're not there yet, but it's getting close. It's happened in other countries. It happened in Spain in the 20th century. It happened in Mexico. People died. Look it up.
Right.
That's not fake news. That's real. That happened. Not just a few people, thousands of people.
I
They
think,
died.
as you said earlier, Joe Resinello at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. But here's the thing. In recent memory, Joe, in conversation with you, you've mentioned to me Our Lady of Akita, or Akita, okay, in Japan. That was what, 1973. Obviously, we know in the 20th century, we've had Our Lady of Fatima. 500 years ago, we had Our Lady of Guadalupe. Okay. I hope I'm alive for it. I would love to see our Blessed Mother. I would love to see her before I die. I want to see her after I die, because I pray in the Hail Mary now and at the hour of our death. Okay. I would love to see our Blessed Mother. But you want to know something? I have serious hope. I'm being serious with you, Joe, and our audience at the Crusade Channel. I have serious hope that that's going to happen, and in our lifetimes, because like you said, normal historical processes take a very long time. This one has not. This revolution, particularly the sexual revolution, started in our lifetimes in the 1960s and has progressed in 50 years to the point where it started as just evil. Now it's gone to the stage of evil insanity. Okay. And I do have a hope that God is going to, there will be a chastisement. Perhaps. I wouldn't be shocked. Okay. But I do think that this is the type of situation now, not just in America, but in the world. Our Lady is due. How about I put it like that? She's due for a visit. What do you think?
It could happen. Easily. I mean, there's been warnings. For those who don't know, Our Lady of Akita basically predicted that the church, there would be a lot of conflict within the church, cardinal against cardinal, bishop against bishop. You could read it. It's an approved, basically Marian apparition. The church approved it. Some are not approved, which means that they investigated it. A statue tears were running down the eyes of the statue. Sweat was coming off the statue. Also, the message of Our Lady of Akita, again, the same year that Roe was basically legally put forth in the United States, 1973. She says that a horrendous punishment will be put forth on humanity. And the only thing that will stop it is courageous sacrifice, reparations, and penance. And that will lessen it. That was stated in 1973. She said it will make the deluge, which she's referring to Noah, look like nothing. She said a large portion of humanity will be wiped out, the good and the bad alike. Fire will come from the sky. And the only thing that you'll have to arm yourself with, she said, and those who survive will wish they were dead. Read it.
That's biblical too.
No, but I'm just saying.
I'm saying, but that's also
pick it up. I recommend it. EWTN, Our Lady of Akita, the message. 3 times she appeared to Sister Sawagawa in Japan.
Also in scripture, it says those who, I don't know what the context is, but I know it's a line in scripture. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm not a biblical scholar, but that those who survive or those who are alive will wish they were dead and will find death nowhere. It's a scary thought. I mean,
she also says the only thing to arm yourself with will be the rosary and the sign that my son leaves in the sky. All I'm saying is this. Am I saying that's going to happen tomorrow? I have no idea.
You don't know.
But I will say this. I do think we're barreling towards a great chastisement, and that is the reset, because no one is listening.
Joe, let me say this to you.
And again,
go ahead.
To you earlier today too. People take God to be like this person who doesn't pay attention to atrocities and injustice. We killed for 50 years in America children, and now we're mutilating their bodies legally. The Boston Children's Hospital advertising the mutilation of children's bodies, lopping off their breasts, children under 18. Do you think that God is going to tolerate this? You see, like, people are oblivious. They think God is just like, you die, you punch your ticket. Oh, everybody's in heaven. God, oh, it's okay. I'll be honest with you. I sit there. I personally think, like I said, I think we're in the beginning stages of a great chastisement. One that is going to make people's heads spin off their neck. And it's going to affect everybody. Just like in the vision. No one's escaping it. No one.
Right.
We have permitted in this country the murder of children for 50 years. I'll say it again.
Well, like you said, also now it's obviously going beyond that. Hey, listen, Jesus is the one who said, woe to him by whom sin comes to any of these little ones. Better than a millstone were hung around their neck and they were dropped in the ocean. Joe, I want to play a clip because in New Jersey, and this speaks to what you were just talking about. So in New Jersey, they recently held a drag show during school where students performed for a select staff of teachers or select teachers to watch. And the parents showed up at the school board. And I want to say to some of these parents, who'd you vote for in New Jersey? Let me play the clip because it speaks to what we say. On the one hand, Joe, I'm hopeful because what happened in Virginia and the response in Virginia, okay, and the response of these parents in New Jersey. But I'm going to play the clip and we'll come back and talk about it because quite frankly, Joe, I don't think it's enough.
Imagine our frustration when passes were given to selected students on October 27th to leave our class at 1:30 to participate in the school-sponsored drag show. Instead of our students being engaged in academic time, they were applying makeup and changing into their drag costumes. This was a loss of over 30 minutes of instructional time for these students. One of the invited spectators for the drag show was Phoebe Mantrap, a professional drag queen. From our perspective, it does not seem fair and equitable that Hunterdon Central students were not able to celebrate with their peers, but a professional drag queen from outside the Hunterdon Central community was allowed. Furthermore, based on the chatter that we have heard amongst the students in our classrooms, Dr. Moore's decision has created significant confusion, division, and resentment between students.
Well, it looks like we put a whole new meaning to the word adult entertainment here, haven't we, Board of Ed? Adult entertainment used to mean adults going to strip clubs, watching other adults engaged in sexual behavior. Well, now, thanks to this board, we see adult entertainment as a bunch of high school staff watching young children for their entertainment.
Joe, I hate to say it like this. We deserve this as a nation. See, to me, that's punishment. When you see an obvious injustice and you can't do anything about it, these parents are not going to do anything. The state of New Jersey is not going to do anything about this.
Oh, I was just going to say that, Joe. 100% agree with you. Nothing.
They're going to do nothing.
100%.
And we have to say, and remember what you said. You said that the vision of Our Lady, she said the good and the bad alike. There are very, very, very good. I use the word good not in a, because I know we're not supposed to. In other words, Jesus said, "Why am I
No,
good?"
I get what you mean.
You know what I'm trying to say. People who strive for the good, people who live their lives in pursuit of the good, which obviously is God Himself and the truth of Jesus Christ. Okay. And there are very many people like that in America. Our benefactor here at the Crusade Channel, Mike Church, okay, and the message he gets out there along with the rest of the staff. I like to think that we're in this fight, this righteous fight, okay, and we're all sinners, and we're all just trying to do our part, okay. I'll take, as Pink Floyd wrote, I'll take this walk-on part in the war. It's like a walk-on part in the greater war, okay, because I'm not going to trade that in for a cage that the enemies of Christ want to put us in. But Joe, as a nation, we brought this upon ourselves, and all the time you spend in front of a school board meeting, no matter how important we know that is to do, and God bless these people for trying, Joe Resinello, it ain't going to mean squat.
Joe, all these type of meetings, they're just managing you. It's like what happened with Kari Lake and the various like meetings that took place after the election. They're letting you sit there and voice your opinion. The way that election laws have been structured, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. The cat is out of the bag. It is sad, to be completely truthful with you. I have no expectation whatsoever. Zero. I am purely at this point relying on God to right the ship. Purely. And He will. That doesn't necessarily mean that America will stand after it's done. But I will guarantee you this: justice will be served. As it usually is, it just takes time. This is a disgrace,
Yes.
what is going on. It is a disgrace. And like I said, just like the cream always rises to the top, the truth makes its way to the public. And God is going to take care of this. People will hear that and they'll laugh. You're not going to be laughing when it happens. You're not going to be laughing when it happens.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, because again, it goes back to what I was saying about my friend at work. He's talking to me. He doesn't think that things like this could happen in America or whatever the case might be. Joe, there was never a stronger empire in the history of the world than the Roman Empire. It lasted 1,000 years. Think about that. Think about what we know of history and how long history is. 1,000 years. But in the 5th century, okay, you don't think the pillars of Rome still stood? The institutions still stood? Of course they did. They were there. They had a Senate. They had an emperor. They had all their civil institutions that they had. But you know why they were so easily conquered at that point by the rest of the barbarian tribes, the Vandals and everybody else? Because they corrupted themselves so deeply from within. That's us.
Oh, it's Joe. It's barreling. It's beyond. It's a parody. I can't even believe that this is real, some of this news. And even, to be honest with you, how our government functions or doesn't function for that matter. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And to be honest with you, none of us are going to be laughing because ultimately, if American weakens, you see what people are missing here is China is growing stronger. Their geopolitical presence is going to be pressing down on the rest of the world as we get weak. You think worrying about Joe Biden and wokeism is our concern? Dude, this is nothing.
You better worry about the Chinese Communist
That is
Party.
right. And I got news for you. That's everywhere and everyone, no matter where you live.
Joe, I got to tell you something. Xi Jinping could have taught Joseph Stalin lessons on exporting communism to the world. Stalin thought he was going to conquer the world. Xi Jinping is doing it masterfully. They're buying up property in America. They're buying up land in America. You got the whole fentanyl issue, okay? In other words, they're working behind the scenes. He doesn't have to get up there and look like anything other than a respected world leader with his blue suit and his red tie, just like an American politician. When you see them running for office, they wear the blue suit and the tie, and he's very manicured, and he's got wonderful hairstyle and all that stuff. And he gets up there. He doesn't have to sound like Joseph Stalin. He doesn't have to take his shoe off and bang it on the desk like Nikita Khrushchev did. They don't have to do that. He's playing us like a fiddle. And the Chinese Communist Party, they're winning.
Oh, no question. And as this country weakens, they are going to get stronger and their presence across the world. There is nowhere to hide when that happens. That means they control everything. Their influence is in every single corporation, everything.
Joe, do you know why? Also, real quick, and this is the shame to say, and this is what a lot of people don't want to say, because those people that we're fighting against here, they admire the Chinese system. They do. They admire their social credit system, putting their boot, the government putting their boot on the face of, in our case, the Catholic Church. Okay, free speech. You don't have that in China. They admire that because they want the same thing here. Why? Because underlying it all, what you're dealing with oligarchs. In China, they call themselves the Chinese Communist Party. In here, they call them the progressive wing of the Democrat Party, which is really the Democrat Party. At the end of the day, the goal is the same. You mean nothing. You will work. I watched recently a video of Dinesh D'Souza addressing, it was from a while ago, addressing students about LBJ. He said, what it is with the communists or the oligarchs, I'm going to put the word oligarchs in D'Souza's mouth, is the way it is now is you work, I eat. In other words, that has never changed from the time it meant a slave owner to a slave, you work, I eat, or now when it comes to the oligarch and the average man like you and me and people like us. You work, we eat. We keep all the power. You get some crumbs because you have to keep working, so you actually have to have enough for you to sustain your body, but you just keep working. The only twist on it, I will say, is that, and we say it all the time, the new chains are sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We'll give you all the things that give you the illusion of freedom, the illusion of pleasure, or maybe actually momentary pleasure, okay? But at the end of the day, your life means nothing. Everything you do will be for us. My larger point here, Joe Rossinello, people in America welcome this, let's call it, this Chinification of America. They'll welcome it because they don't like people like me and you either, and they certainly don't value the Constitution of the United States. They want that system. The elites in Hollywood, the elites in the banking system, they want that system because that's their means of control.
Well, it's about control, but I'll be honest with you. The Chinese Communist Party does not value LGBT rights. The Chinese Communist Party is not going to tolerate a
Joe,
lot.
can I jump on that real quick to hand it
Sure.
over to you? But look how they did. E. Michael Jones says it very simply. The oligarchs use proxies. So in the past, the oligarchs, the proxy was African Americans. They used the civil rights movement. They used African Americans to gain political power. Then it moved from there to feminism, and abortion and contraception and women's rights. And they used the feminists. They use people and then discard them. That's what they do. And to your point, when now American blacks are realizing now that they've been duped, they have been actually realizing for a long time, except the fact that the black liberal establishment in America, they are the true Uncle Toms. Okay, not like the people they accuse of being Uncle Toms, like conservative African Americans, James Clyburn and people like him. They are the new Uncle Toms. They are doing the bidding of the white liberal establishment slave masters. That's true. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, so they use African Americans, then they discard them. They used women up until the time feminists like J.K. Rowling, who's no conservative, and Martina Navratilova, who's no conservative, who's also a lesbian, says that they don't want men keep competing in women's sports. What happens to J.K. Rowling and Martina Navratilova? Now you're ostracized. You better walk back your statements or we're going to ostracize you now. They use people and then discard them. My larger point is to what you just said. The so-called LGBT crowd, well, they're going to have to fall in line too. And if they don't fall in line with the party, they'll be discarded also.
Well, we covered a story about that, Joe. At a college in China, they had some type of like flag, rainbow flag, and basically they came down on those people. That's in China. That's not covered. No one cares because, to be honest with you, they're making money left hand over fist, and they don't care. We've talked about the Uyghurs. We had the prime minister of East Turkestan on our show talking about. No one cares.
No.
And it's the same thing what's going on here. It's watered down totalitarianism with regard to the government using Twitter to influence an election. Again, that's not fake news. It just came out on Twitter. It just came out, and more of it's going to come out. It's not going to be covered. No one cares. They're still going to vote for Joe Biden, tens of millions of people. The Republicans are going to do nothing about it because they're afraid if Donald Trump becomes the president, he's going to attack the establishment, which means that they lose power and the people gain a little bit more. And they're not about that. And that's why this is all a farce. And
well, ultimately, if we gain some power, Joe, let's say we had, let's be a little hypothetical here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello on the Crusade channel. Let's say we got a decent amount of power. Let's say certain things got straightened out and we had a serious conservative majority in the House and Senate with some liberal Republicans and moderates, but predominantly conservative and a conservative president. The problem is not being able to acquire power. The problem is we don't do what we're supposed to do with that power. So let's say, for argument's sake, this so-called Respect for Marriage Act, which we know is Disrespect for Marriage Act, and the Free Reign to Assault the Catholic Church Act is really what they should call it, okay? Whereas if you had a real conservatives in the House and Senate and in the Oval Office, they immediately repeal that law.
The reason why they don't is because they get money from everyone who controls everything leans left in everything. Hollywood, banking, advertising, big pharma. That's why they don't do anything, because they're not allowed to, because they get their money from them. You see, that's why this is going nowhere. Politics is never going to solve these issues because the money that fuels them, even the GOP, even the quote unquote conservatives. You see, we need, and I'm going to use Elon Musk as an example.
Please.
What Elon Musk, and again, is he flawed? Of course he is.
Of course he is.
He's not perfect. He's not the new Donald Trump. He's not the new Messiah. I'm just using him as an example. What we just witnessed with Elon Musk is a man who laid it on the line. He did not have to do this. He was the richest man on the earth, worth over $100 billion. He did this because he believed in it, and he put down $44 billion. And he's risking his livelihood. They're going to come after that man like you have never seen anyone come after. Maybe as much as that they went after Trump, because he's actually threatening their power.
He's new public enemy number one.
We need leadership that basically show that type of example. Courage, unfettered courage.
We don't
need
have
co-
it. We don't have it in
And
America.
that's my point. We don't have it in the church, and we don't have it in our politicians, because it's a I'm not going to say with regard to the church. I'm not going to judge people. I'm going to look at most of our politicians. They're self-serving. They don't have servant leadership. Oh, they give you all the frigging lip service. You laid down your livelihood like Elon Musk did. That's the type of politician that we need. That's the politician that I will vote for. And as far as clergymen, that's the cardinal that I will die for. I don't see it.
No.
I don't see it. And that's why our country, frankly, is in the sewer.
Well, I agree with you. I want to throw out something that might be a little shocking to people. Joe Rossinello here on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Alyssa Milano. I know you're going to say, why are you saying her name, Joe? I'm going to tell you something. I don't know why. I don't know why, Joe. Doesn't make me a great person. Okay. When I pray my rosary and I pray for the conversion of souls, I have a list of certain people I pray for by name, along with everybody else in the world. Alyssa Milano is one of them. I don't know if it's because she's Italian. I don't know. But I will say this. She, I believe, is somewhat lost. Now, having said all that, I am going to encourage her, because she told the girls on The View, because we have that's probably wrong. Well, Whoopi, well, she might object to me calling her a girl. The women on The View, that she is staying on Twitter and she's not going to cede that territory. Some people, I don't know how they would look at that story. I read that story and I went, bravo, Alyssa. Bravo. You're pro-abortion. You're pro-LGBT. You're pro all these things that conservatives hate. And you're staying on a free speech platform. I hope more of them do, to be honest with you. She said, I'm not ceding that territory. I say, you're not ceding anything. You're ceding that by you leaving, you're not doing anything for your cause. And you're actually doing something that's a little bit more courageous than your fellow lefties, because at least you're willing to stay there and engage the wider public in this forum that we call Twitter. I applaud her for that. I do. I think it takes a lot of nerve, because the rest of them are like, I'm leaving Twitter and we're going to tell all the advertisers to leave Twitter and we're going to bankrupt them. No, you're not. You're not bankrupting Twitter, because Elon Musk is smarter than you. So he will find a way to make Twitter profitable, and they're going to be around for a long time, and it'll be an authentic free speech platform. But underlying it all, I hope more lefties stay there. I hope more liberals stay there. And I hope it does, or he could get it to a point where it is an actual free marketplace of ideas, because I think it could be it would be a very powerful means by which people like you and I and other people, without being suppressed like they do on YouTube, they'll basically drop the hammer on us at some point. They already have, to a degree, where we could actually express our views and engage other people like Alyssa Milano and other people who aren't afraid to at least try or attempt to defend their position. What do you think about what I just said?
Well, ultimately, I think that they stay on Twitter, because it's almost like they have to see what's being said. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That
Right.
It's sort of like the place to be, and they want to know what's going on. But to your point, about basically like a free marketplace of ideas, that's dangerous to this power structure. We have quote unquote free press. Well, they're in the bag. They don't report it. We just said they covered 7 seconds on arguably one of the biggest corruption examples in American history, where the United States government basically colluded with a media outlet to influence an election. That's not fake news, guys. That just came out, and it's going to continue to come out, and they're not going to cover it.
That's not misinformation.
No, sorry. That's not. It's not. It's on Twitter, and it's going to continue to come out. But they don't care. And again, journalism, they should change the word. It's activism.
Activism, yeah.
It's not journalism. It's completely dead. That was a liberty. The free press is absolutely institutionalized. It is utter trash.
Yeah, you want to hear another? Only because you reminded me of something, because you talked about the press. This current press secretary Biden's press secretary. She was yelling at a reporter the other day for asking questions. She says, "I'm not gonna answer you. We've already been over that. And you're gonna stop yelling at me. Blah blah blah." And she was going on like she was all offended. If I was there, I would have raised my hand and said, "Honey," I would have pulled like a Nork thing. Joe, "Excuse me, honey. Yeah, can I have your attention for a minute, honey? Let me just explain something to you. Did you look at what they did to Donald Trump's press secretary for 4 years straight? Kayleigh McEnany, Huckabee, who was it? Sean Spicer before then. When Donald Trump himself was in a press conference, how they yelled and screamed, the civility went out the window. Don't chastise. Don't try to scold this reporter because you don't like his tone. Because your own people show no civility when it was people who you politically disagree with. So spare us that, honey. That's what I would have said. Spare us
Well,
that,
it's
honey.
over. Joe, I'll be honest with you. Honestly, and I say that very heavy-hearted. Maybe it always was, and I didn't see it. Joe, it's over. It is a mockery of what this country is supposed to be. It's over. And here's the thing. The consequences of these decisions are also going to continue to barrel down the road of destruction. Decisions have consequences, like them or not. The country is falling apart. You don't have to look far. You don't have to look far. You go into New York City. There is such a vast difference in a matter of 3 years from now to before COVID. It's absurdly more decadent. You see it at the border, all of which was done for political power. Be damned the cities that basically have an influx of people. They don't even know what to do with them. They don't care.
I know, Joe.
And here's another thing. They do it with like, dude, no one covers it. No one gives them any like pushback. It's over.
It's over. Well,
over, dude.
Well, Joe, our show's over for tonight. So it's appropriate that you use those words. And we want to thank everybody for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Please go to the website, crusadechannel.com, and check it out and listen to Mike Church and listen to Rick Barrett and the whole lineup. You already listen to Frontline with Joe and Joe. And you know what? We're convinced you're going to want to subscribe to the Crusade Channel. Let's support all our Catholic podcasters, our authentically conservative podcasters and people like that, and radio station owners like Mike Church. Let's get on board. Cancel HBO if you have to. Save a few bucks. You won't have filth coming into your house, and you'll have plenty of money to support Joe and I and Mike Church and everybody else. So thank you once again, and remember until the next time that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon. Securing your data privacy is more important than ever. Start your free privacy scan and see how much of your data is being sold on the internet. Dataseal.io is the best and most affordable way to secure your data from ending up in the wrong hands. Remove your data today from the internet with Dataseal.io. That's Dataseal.io.